Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Monday Minute. This is the third consecutive Monday Minute, believe it or not, and hoping to keep these up for a little while at least. We'll see how long it goes, but I've been enjoying doing these so far, and hopefully you are enjoying listening. For those listening and or watching, these can be found on Instagram and YouTube, and also podcast version can be found anywhere the podcasts can be found. So be sure to check it out, send it to a friend or coworker or whatnot, someone you may think it might help. Today, it's a little later in the afternoon, and I've been thinking for a while and kind of praying about what I should share. And a dream came to me that I had a little while back, and sort of interesting. It kind of came back to me a couple days ago, and it was sort of one of those moments as if I was kind of reliving the dream or having it again. And long story short, it was kind of something simple. I was in real life, actually, I was preparing to speak somewhere, and which I don't do very often. And so this dream really stood out to me because of that. And in the dream, I was on a platform of a church, and worship was going on, music was going, and individual went to hand me the microphone and turn things over to me. And when they did, and I reached to grab the microphone, they kind of stopped and pulled it back and pulled me in, and they asked me the question. They were like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And I remember in the dream just kind of being like, okay, and just grabbing the mic and going from there. But I remember waking up, and even just the other day when this came back to me, thinking how I really, so much of life, and especially ministry, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, and I don't feel like I'm equipped or whatever. You fill in the blank for yourself. I'm sure it applies to many. But with that thought, I've been reading in the Book of Kings, and really interesting story, the life of Josiah, the king, who he was 8 years old when he became a king. And I can only imagine for this boy that he's only a boy, I can only imagine how he felt. Yes, his dad and his grandfather and however many generations back were kings, but if you look in 2 Kings 21, talking about his father Ammon, how that he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and just as his father, so Josiah's grandfather, had also done, and he walked and served the idols that his father had served and worshiped them, and he forsook the Lord God of his fathers and did not walk in the way of the Lord. And so Josiah, this 8-year-old boy who's now king because the people killed his father, they said, enough with this, and they killed his father and made him king. I can only imagine him feeling inadequate and unequipped. And in a lot of ways he wasn't taught the right things. He wasn't really raised the way he was supposed to be, as a prince, but also as an Israelite. Ammon wasn't following after the Lord, and so he clearly, it would seem, wasn't teaching his son to follow in the ways of the Lord. And I think that is evident in Josiah's life and what he does next, because you look at 2 Kings 22, something pretty amazing. Verse 2 says that, speaking of Josiah, that he did that what was right in the sight of the Lord. and walked in all the ways of his father David, and he did not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. So somehow he found out what was right, what he was supposed to do, and he walked in that. But what makes me realize that he probably wasn't taught this from his father was following verses. He's got this little project going on and sends a high priest to the house of the Lord, and this high priest finds the book of the law. And long story short, he takes it, and he takes the book to Josiah, and they begin to read it. And verse 11 here says, it happened when the king heard the words of the book of the law that he tore his clothes, and he was humbled and convicted by the words that he had heard. And to me, this goes for me personally, and I believe also for so many in my generation who, we're really big about inspiration and hearing some word or new thing that's inspiring and that'll move us to action, or at least bring us to the altar. But we're not super big about application, and we can have the inspiration and do something in a moment, but then once that moment of inspiration and sensation is over, we sort of resort back to the ways of our fathers, so to speak. And Josiah, he's a great example of not doing this. He's a great example of hearing the conviction of the word of the Lord. And I believe, like James says, he wasn't only a hearer of the word, but he was a doer also. And I was reading a book earlier, and it made a statement that said, it's talking of a biblical principle. It said, having knowledge but not doing anything with it or not applying it really is not knowing at all. And it's so true when it comes to our walk and the conviction of the Word of God that comes to us. And if you continue in Kings chapter 23, you'll see that King Josiah, he begins to tear down some things. The temple and the articles that were made for Baal and for the Asherah, and all these other things. The one translation says the zodiacs and all these idolatrous priests. He takes them out, and he burns their instruments, and he removes them, and he begins to get Israel and Jerusalem back into its proper place and its proper order. And if you look again at the beginning of his reign, what it said of his life, how that he walked in the ways of his father David, and he didn't turn aside to the right hand or to the left. But to me, what is so powerful and convicting of this story and this young man who he wasn't raised with a father that taught him how he should live, how he should serve the Lord. But when he heard the word of the Lord, he didn't only hear it, but he acted on it. And he made the changes, and he was counterculture in the right way, removing the things from his life and from the life of the whole nation that defiled the will and the law of God. And he got things back in proper order. And I think for us as a generation who we're dealing with a lot of things, the Bible also speaks of us having itching ears for some new doctrine and some new things, some new philosophies. And if we're not careful, we'll go after just the inspiration and not search the word for the proper application. And I know for myself that I want to be a doer of the word and not just a hearer. And I know most of the people who will listen and are listening are probably church people, Christians, but I know there's a handful that maybe aren't as invested or don't have as as much of a relationship with God, or you don't have parents that have raised you in the church, and so you're sort of at this place of trying to figure out life for yourself. I know a lot of people listening are my age and college age, and it's a tough place to be because maybe our parents didn't walk in the way that they should have. And now we're faced with decisions, and now we're faced with the pressure of the world that says, why don't you just live however you want? Why don't you just follow in those steps because it's what's expected of you anyway? But I'm challenging myself and want to challenge someone else today and say, why not be different? Why not be counterculture in a true sense of what being counterculture is? Because, having blue hair and doing all this crazy stuff, and that's not counterculture anymore, because that's what everyone's doing. Everyone's just trying to be different and find who they are in the name of individuality, when in reality they're conforming to what the things around them are saying that they should be and should do. And so as Christians, as apostolics, true opposition to this world and individuality really is standing up for what is right. Not many people do that anymore. Not many people stand up for absolutes. Not many people say that this is right, this is wrong, and I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to stand up for it. Not many people are counterculture in that way anymore. But I would challenge you today, as I'm challenged in my spirit, to remove some things, to hear the word of the Lord. Yesterday was Sunday, and many of you probably heard conviction and convicting words from God, and maybe responded in that moment. But now it's Monday. Now the week is full speed, full force, and we have decisions to make every single day of, am I going to choose today to serve the Lord? And am I going to choose today to go in the way that's against the grain of culture? Or am I going to just sit back and do what's expected of me from the world because it's the thing to do? Whether I'm a Christian or someone in the world, I think I would want to be different from the expectations of everyone around me. And I've always been that way, but I think the Spirit of the Lord is calling. I know He's calling a people. He's calling our younger generation and saying, are you going to just fall in line with the ways and the traditions of the world? Are you going to stand up in the midst of idolatry like Josiah did and make a stand and clear out some things in your own life? Not depending on our fathers or our mothers, but doing it for ourselves. And so, thank you for listening today. Be encouraged in the Lord. Have a great rest of your Monday and a great week ahead. God bless.